Hello, TheKiest's here, and we're here with another OPERI. Origins, Preparations, Execution, Reflection, Iteration. For those who don't know this, check out my other videos, but essentially this is my TO documentation stuff. Forgive the lighting. One of my lights went out 2 minutes ago, so I'm going to look dark. It means the camera's going to be fuzzy. Cameras need light. That's how it works. But this is the OPERI for the Tuesday trials. This was done on July 20th. At the new Game Arena OSU. There's going to be a kind of sibling video. Yes, my videos are gender neutral now. The video's going to be more about Game Arena as the venue on my thoughts on it. But this video is going to be more about how me and the other TOs ran the event at Game Arena. So we're not going to go over things like what's the parking like, or what's the food specials like, all that kind of stuff. Or I don't like where the setups are located, as in like the actual location. We'll talk about like organization of it, but the point is that I'm going to treat this kind of like just I showed up day one and this is what we're doing. So first I'm going to do some background. So the origins purposes of the Tuesday trials was to test out the new venue for a possible Donato split. For those who don't know, Columbus, Ohio has had a Tuesday weekly at the basement of Donato's for the last 9 years, almost 10. It's kind of crazy. Game Arena has a new location on OSU campus, and they proposed if we could move our event over to them on Tuesdays, and I said, let's try it first before we say yes, and this was us trying it and stuff. Then for those who don't know, Game Arena is a LAN center group. It's hard to call them just the LAN center when they have two locations, but the idea is that you go in and you can pay for PC time, but they've also let us either use their venue, rent from their venue, or they've just run FGC events themselves. One's coming up this weekend for Melee, and there was one last weekend for Ultimate, and I've used them for several other events on here, like Shoryuken Sundays and many of the Smash Ultimate stuff. So Tuesday trials, though, we were kind of GA and I were talking, and it was kind of like, all right, Keith, what's the name of the event going to go? And I was like, oh, I don't know. I thought you guys were going to pick because it's kind of your venue, but we'll go more into that in a minute. But the point, I was like, well, we're kind of doing a trial run, and it's Tuesday, so we'll call it the Tuesday trial. Oh, wait, that's actually a really good name for the whole series. So I think we're going to call these Tuesdays the Tuesdays trials, unless people don't like it, but I really like it. I might keep it even if people don't like it. I do that with tournament names already and stuff. So the big point, though, is that GA wanted us to feel like we can do anything that we could do at Donato's at this new location, which I think we can. It's mostly true. What a lot of people aren't going to realize is that Donato's took me about 2 to 3 years to figure out how to actually get it working the way that it does today. It was sloppy 2 to 3 years, especially during like Smash 4 when I was teaching people like Mindset and Cardinal how to TO and stuff. So it's not like this is going to be night and day. It takes a while to figure out a venue when you're using it in a weekly capacity. When you do a weekend event, it's a little different because it's kind of, I almost think it's harder to do a weekly thing, because if it's a monthly thing or a weekend thing, you just kind of do it the one time and it's like whatever, and you got a while till it's done. But the Tuesday, doing it weekly, you have to like create something and maintain it, that consistency every week as far as like atmosphere goes and everything, and it becomes part of the culture of your local scene, which is insane. Whereas the monthlies, I feel, don't really do that. Monthlies, maybe they could, but most of you know how I feel about monthlies. I don't like them. Point is that a weekly defines the culture, and because of that, atmosphere is even more important, and because of that, it's even harder to get something more consistent in that regards. So that's kind of the point on that stuff. So, I guess I'll talk about the venue a little bit in the origins part. And pretty much the agreement we came across is that we'd essentially be, instead of GA running the event like they do for the Smash LAN Thursdays, or the Thursday night fight night, it's essentially the Columbus Fighting Game Group, or Columbus Ultimate, or Columbus Flavortown, or the TheKiest's team. I don't have a name for us. I don't think it matters. The point is, it's us in Columbus. We're essentially renting out the place And by renting out, I mean the money people get from food orders will cover the venue, essentially. And then we have free reign over where things go, what gets ran, where things get ran at, who streams, who doesn't stream, where do they stream at actually in the place, what time do we open the doors, how many games we run for tournaments, what the PCs are good to use for, which we mostly use for console setups, we'll get to that in a sec, and even goes down to, like, technically the public can come, but if the public's coming, they're coming to enter a tournament or coming to watch us play tournaments. They're not coming or eat food and drinks while watching us play stuff every week. But they're not coming to reserve PCs like they would on a normal day. They're not coming to reserve console time like they would on another day and stuff. So that's kind of more on the Origin side. Whether that's succeeded or not, we'll get to that when we get to Reflection. So, preparations, venue. So, a lot of prep actually went into this, despite how sloppy I think everything went that night, but we'll get more into that during Execution and Reflection. But the venue, I got to tour it not once, but 3 times before Tuesday trial. Once by the owner and Ohio Big Boss, or Big Boss Kev. And then a second time, I did a rundown with Sella Monster to kind of figure out where things are going exactly. And then a third time, I just came during, like, a different event, I think. Just something was happening. Actually, I don't even think anything's happening. But the thing I looked at is we looked at, hey, how did they do things for their previous Tension Shift? I'm sorry, not Tension Shift, but their Street Fighter 5. I can't remember the name of the event, but it's when they got that one NFL player, I think, or something. It was with Rob TV, whatever that event is called. I'm terrible with names. Forgive me, folks. They mentioned that they did all the PC setups were, like, kind of head-to-head, but they only had about 6 setups, which is kind of all you need for just, like, a Street Fighter 5 day. We looked at, doing a pizza special, which was, like, $3 off the personal pans, which I thought was okay and stuff. And I kind of loosely figured out where the streamers were going to go, and I loosely figured out where each area was going to set up at, but it's kind of the problem with this place is that it's built to be like a standing watching area and not necessarily a event zone, and I'll kind of get more to that Reflection also. But the point is that we decided, so you walk in. I'm going to try to mirror this. It's going to be weird on the stream end. Not that way. Yeah, you walk in. And then, you go off to the side. And this is like your reg desk area. And then you go up. And then you had like your line. Maybe I should just do pictures next time I do this. But that's where like the PCs are. So the idea was that each setup was going to be on a PC. And if there's enough splitters to not make the ones here head to head, but there was these, I'm just going to reverse this anyway. There was these 2 cubbies here that had about this long or something. They could fit about, they had 6 PCs there, so 3 head-to-head setups. So the idea was to make those all the head-to-heads and make those the other fighting games. So we ran Grand Blue and Unist on those, or Uniclear, and the idea was once those games were done, switch them out for Tekken, and all the other setups were going to be used for Fantasy Strike, which only need 2, and for Smash. Putting Fantasy Strike in a different cubby area, which I'm just going to refer to that as the cubby area, where it had 6 PCs and stuff. And then for the stream, we got Matchstick, we got Quaggles being a newer up-and-comer streamer for the Smash Ultimate scene that we're trying to get going and stuff, since Soul can't consistently make it out. And the way this venue is set up, for those who haven't been in it, there are 2, in the very middle of the venue is a big room that's split in 2 for the sake of 5v5 or 6v6 PC tournaments, like if you want to do Valorant or something, that each team's isolated with a soundproof boothing. And then in one of those rooms, there's also a commentator thing. We didn't use the commentator thing this time. I just told the streamers, hey, bring your gear. We'll play it by ear, because I want to see what happens here. Because again, part of this is the stress test. I kind of should have mentioned that at the beginning, but testing the venue, I think, for a weekly setting, you got to stress out the place. I think for a monthly, it's your first event, you need to be cautious and do what you think you can do. But I think for a weekly, you need to go over the top, because you kind of know you're going to use the spot anyway, or you already... It's because, again, you're trying to figure out what you can schedule each week, I guess. The game schedule, this was a little harder to do until I realized I overthought it. So for those who don't know the game list, it was a lot. Ultimate, Guilty Gear. No, we didn't do Guilty Gear that week. I'll get to why we didn't do Guilty Gear in a sec. We did Uniclear. We did Grand Blue versus... I'm never going to get that name right. I think it's called Grand Blue Fantasy versus... I still feel like that's wrong. Fantasy Strike, and Tekken 7. So we did 5 tournaments. For those who don't usually go to Donato's, we normally do 3 to 4, not 5. But we tried 5, because again, we're told this place is better than Donato's. So we should be able to do 5. Spoiler, we could not do 5. Well, we did 5, but we shouldn't have. So the idea, again, was that these 3 games... Make sure you guys can actually see my clicks. Yeah, you can. Okay. These 3 games all were in the cubbies, and then the idea was Ultimate was out in the outer setups, and then Tekken 7 would replace them, and the upstairs would be for casuals. And then finally, for COVID guidelines, so the thing about most venues in Columbus is, except maybe not Rube's Day, I'm not going to talk about that since I don't know, but, or for Burst and Brews, level 1. But for Game Arena and Donato's, they've been pretty much telling us that they can't enforce masks and they can't enforce vaccinations, thus we cannot either. There are things we could do, but the thing is that this was kind of more spread out compared to Donato's, since Donato's is just crammed up in a basement, so we just didn't do a cap this time. If anything, we pretty much didn't do guidelines at all for this thing. It's just kind of like, wear the masks. Some people did. Some people didn't. I usually try to wear a mask because I don't sneeze, and I sneeze an average of 7 times. So, there are ways we could spread it out a bit, but again, this is all preparation and stuff. So we kind of decided, hey, it's kind of a at your own risk thing. I'm kind of in the camp originally about the whole, like, hey, you know, if you don't get vaxxed, it's kind of on you, and it's on your risk to show up. But it's not really going to cause harm if you do, but now we've got these Delta variations. We're going to have mask mandates and possibly other lockdowns in the future, despite a good chunk of the population being vaxxed, especially in the gaming populace. Something we can maybe improve on, but the point is for this, we pretty much didn't have any. So now at the execution, this is where I objectively describe what happened at the venue, but I'm not going to put in any personal spins on it. That's more on the reflection end. So first thing was pools. It was not brought to my attention. We were doing round-robin pool, or sorry, not round-robin pools, that we were splitting Ultimate 64 entrants into 4 16-man brackets. Part of Donato's is to be a place for the TOs to lab at. So I'm going to say that in reflection for a bit. So essentially, whenever you do a pool, it's essentially another event. And then top 8 is another event, so you almost split into 5. I'll get more into later during reflection why that's good or bad. But anyways, we had 4 pools, and it took a while to set up because based on where we had the setups located, we had to put some upstairs, so that made pools kind of weird. We had 13 setups. 2 of them were upstairs, so that meant like a pool had to have upstairs and downstairs, kind of weird, plus the stream setup. And the head-to-heads we did in the cubbies, but looking back, again, we're not going to do that, but we, you know, I kind of mentioned before, we had Smash in, like, the thin line of PCs, so, like, you walk in, you have your TO Reg desk, which is the candy shop, for those wondering, like, where you can just buy anything but alcohol there, including phone orders. Then you had, like, about 6 PCs. Those had 6 setups. And then you had a line of, I believe it was 12 PCs with 6 on each side. And we did 6 setups there because there's not quite enough room for it on both sides for doubles and stuff. But these were not streaming setups. I think we had 3, 3, 3, and like 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. So that meant, like, on the other side, you had 6 people sitting on that table. And then on that, we had the cubbies, and that's where Uniclear was in. The northern one, is that north? Yeah, northern one, and the southern one was for Grand Blue, which we had 3 setups for both, which was great. And then underneath all that, in the back by the bathrooms, you have another cubby that had 6 PCs that we used 2 setups for Fantasy Strike and 1 for Smash. But Smash was more just spillover because we just actually ran out of setup Smash space. So we were trying to avoid not to put anything upstairs, so for the pool situation, but we had to put some upstairs just because we ran out. So bravo, community, you brought your setups. I always want more setups than we ever need. Myself, others have different opinions about it, but we'll get to that in a minute. Smash GG, this was all done on the Smash GG site, but you know, one of the problems with Smash GG is that it will. You can search for a player, you can search for what pool they're in and what game they're in, but you can't search for if they're in a match or or like where they are in bracket besides the pool. Like you don't have like, hey, they're sitting in round 2 losers. Or they're currently playing against such and such. You have to go to like a separate page for that. Maybe there's a way to do it. I don't know. When you search by player name on Smash GG, you just can't do it and stuff. So that was kind of nightmarish. I get it, but that's more on that end of stuff. Plus having a difficult time going through that stuff. I should move this down to reflection because I will rant about this for days. Commentary, we had so we had Quaggles in one room with the commentators and with the players, and then another room we had Tekken and Uniclear with the commentators and with the players. So it was just to make less confusion on like where people play and stuff. And they hooked up. What was nice about that is that they had PCs in it. That means they had Ethernet access, so they didn't have to use Wi-Fi to stream for a change, which is kind of rare for weeklies. So they were able to just connect there. And then finally upstairs, it started off as Smash areas, and then it became some Tekken setups at first until we moved them down to the downstairs. And then during that time, we switched out some Uniclear and Grand Blue setups for Tekken setups, mostly the Uniclear setups. Unfortunately, Chauncey Jushichi was in the middle of doing his Uniclear match when Tekken needed to start, so there was a little miscommunication on when we needed to do the swaps and whose PS4s was whose and which had Tekken, which didn't. And I did not get to that since I was also entering stuff myself and making sure the reg area was still working and everything. Alright, so that's kind of how everything went. We still finished by about 12:10 because of how late Tekken started, and Tekken almost went to reset, but it didn't. Plus Teardown, although Teardown's kind of minimal since we had the GA staff with it. And then during which the GA staff took food orders and drink orders and did a pretty good job getting them out to players, although we need to have a ticketing system of some sort, but we'll get more into that when I talk about in the other video, I think. So, alright, now we're on reflection. And the thing about reflection is this is where I get to talk more about what's going on. The biggest thing in my problem here was communication. I had the problem with mindset with the pools. He thought it was a good idea last minute. Something you cannot do in a multi-game event is decide you're going to do pools when people are entering multiple games. Because then all the other TOs are just like, what the F? Especially because pools are slower. But we'll get more to that when I describe about pools. But the point is, we didn't really communicate that well. The other thing we failed to communicate well was Zion, God bless his soul. He worked his keister off, if you will, because I was busy somewhere else. He needed to have setups swapped. And the guy who knew how the setups were swapped was currently in a match for finals. So we didn't really spread out who should do what, and it was in a spot that wasn't great. I'll get more into that in the setups area. But the big thing here was communication stuff. We had the TOs, and a lot of them felt kind of lost on what they were doing. I mentioned plans in a chat beforehand, but not everyone got to read the chat since I only posted it about at like 3 p.m. or something of what the general plan was. A lot of it's my fault. Part of it's because I want to do... Back then, I was thinking I wanted to do stress test the place. Really get things figured out, but sometimes if you stress it too much, then it gives a really bad spin on the event. Which I guess I'll say my grade now. I kind of gave this thing a C- as far as TOing goes. Not necessarily the venue itself. Again, that's a separate topic. Commentating area. It was something I didn't know I could do at the time. But those rooms get hot. We'll get more into that when we talk about the venue in the other video. But I guess the bigger problem is that while Tekken is cool with the commentators next to him for the most part, a lot of games, including Smash, are not. So we have to kind of separate them, which we're able to do according to GA. Is that so? We had this room was for Quaggles and his stream. This room was for Matchstick and his stream of the players, and we could just have the two streamers in one room and the commentators. Although I'd put them over in this end because there's less foot traffic. And then you'd have in this room, you'd have the games being streamed. So you'd have like Uniclear on one setup and Smash Ultimate on another setup, and they can be connected through because they have to be in order to do the LAN connections anyway for some of those other games. So that's all you have to do for that one. Probably should have mentioned that more on the iteration side, but just figured I'd mention it now. So walking space was awful. That was another problem. This had to do mostly with you had the long line of PCs and the two cubbies. And because we didn't do head-to-head on these, that meant that you had two players, and then smashers and console players in general, they like to be away from the monitors because you can't push the monitors back since they're already in the dead center of the table. So that meant anyone trying to get into these cubbies just can't because they have to go around all the smashers and stuff. So that was really difficult for FGC games because I guess it's kind of the same thing as setup areas. So I'll just bleed into that spot. FGC games in general, matches go much faster than Smash. So that means, if you're thinking it as like water current or a traffic flow, if you want to go more civil engineer route, that means that these two rooms, they're constantly having traffic go in and out, and this is more of a standstill. But if this is not moving, then that means these sections can't be moving either. So it's kind of like hindsight 2020 is the cubbies. All three of them need to be just where the Smash setups are because there's less movement overall. And then the setups that need the most movement, you put into the area up front with the thing. A lot of TOs might think that's kind of obvious, depending on how much they're experiencing stuff. But personally, I'm used to spots where I tend to set up at the perimeter of a room, and then I fill in the middle. And I try to gauge the perimeter kind of a stuff. But that's not how this venue works. Instead, the perimeter, kind of goes in a zigzag thing with the cubbies plus a thing in the middle. Personally, I think that spot is way too close. I'll mention that more in detail in the sibling video. Man, I just misgendered a video that doesn't even exist yet. So I think that's just the big problem, is just I just need to put Smash in the cubby sections, make those the main stuff. It kind of sucks that they kind of have to go through it all, but at the same time, it's that foot traffic stuff. The other problem with that area is it's actually difficult to walk past someone, and I'm kind of surprised it was built with those specs to begin with, because like even if you're a PC gamer, you're not going to be like right at the table. You're going to be some are going to, like, even though you should be from a ergonomical standpoint, most aren't going to be. Either the screen's too far, too close or something, or like just based on where the keyboard is and stuff, it's like they can't reach over and all that stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe because it's mostly they were used to kids, so they thought it was the same space that they could do at the Hilliard location. Maybe it is the same dimensions, but it's just hard to get through. I guess it's also different because of the Hilliard location. Like if you're in a row of PCs and there's enough chairs to bump into each other, that's fine because, it's like the tension's going to be both are tucked in, then one person gets out, pushes in, and the other guy can get out and stuff. Problem is that you have a wall, and the wall can't move. And so if you're scoot back at all, which happens again naturally with the console playing, then no one can walk through. So the part I'm not sure about, and you guys can help me on this part, is you have a cubby. I almost think I should draw it on my thing instead. Yeah, you have your cubby here with your table, and you have oh my gosh, the camera here. Head to head. So you either do that, and if you do, oh my gosh, man, camera working. Head to head. I don't know why my positioning's off, just because I'm just sitting in a different spot. If this setup's playing and it's a head to head, then they have to wait for these two players and for these two players. So it's like two matches they have to wait for in order to get out and in. If you do 2, 2, and 2, then this side just has to wait for one match to get through, or one round or something for them to squeeze through. but they still have to wait longer because they're disrupting 2 people. Point is with these cubbies, hopefully the goal, which I'll talk more in the other video, is that you can instead do, you know, you have your table. I'll just use a fist. You have your table, and you have normally your head-to-head with your 3. So you either do one setup on this side, one setup on the other, and then hopefully room on the edge for another one. But then that means you're negating room from the main table there, unless that main table can be moved and stuff. But I think that goal is to keep those head-to-head, but put the smashers in that zone. Because then the traffic flow is not as ridiculous. But it's kind of harder. It's just not built for console gaming. That's the big thing. If it's PC gaming, again, they're tucked in. It's not a big deal. Console gaming, you're leaning back. As you're leaning back on wheelchairs, you're going to be pushing back even if you're not intending to. You don't want to sit up too close to the screen, especially since the screens are, even if it is the head-to-head thing. Just not enough room. I'm not sure what they can do about that. I've got thoughts, but again, that's more outside of the scope of this video. Pools. All right. For the record, pools are not faster than big bracket. Pools are built for the convenience for players and TOs. The reason they're not faster is because, A, you need captains. So if you have those captains immediately ahead of time, that's fine. But that's technically time spent assigning captains, assigning locations and stuff. Second reason is you need to have, again, a player convenience. You have to have designated spots for your pools, and they have to make sense. And if they don't make sense, then players are going to get just as confused as a big bracket, so you might as well just done a big bracket to begin with. If you're doing a big bracket, too, the players just need to know the general vicinity of where to play at and just pay attention for their names. And it's easier for the TO to, like, find that setup before those players and stuff. Because you have, especially if you have your setups labeled, which is something we actually need to do, is actually get setup labels. Which PCs, I think, might be labeled, but we can probably get signs or something. Or GA can make signs or something. They might want them for their events anyway, so it'd be something they could universally use. They kind of have those in the Hilliard location for their console area, but not their PC area. We're technically doing their PC area and stuff. I think pools can be done, but you can't do 4 groups. You do 2 groups instead. Or you do your 4 waves of pools, and you have everything ready to go right at 7. That was not the case this time. Mostly because we didn't understand how we were going to do setups in places because of the mix of everything. Even though, again, I explained all of that, where the setups were going to go, including extra Smash setups being upstairs, but with the odd numbers and stuff, just wasn't going to work out well. Plus, when you do pools, you then have to then get everyone ready for the top 8 or the winner's side, and that also takes more time. Whereas a big bracket, you don't really care. You can just fill up until you're at that position, but you keep going and stuff too. For those who are still confused, like, no, it's the same amount of matches and the same amount of setups. Even if if you do 4 waves and you're using every setup for those 4 waves, then it should be the same amount of time. That is incorrect because eventually at one point you'll get a pool that has maybe 2 games they can do out of the 4 because the matches went quicker or another player's in another game or something. Whereas another pool that's right next to them will actually need 6 setups based on how many matches there are, because we're doing 16-man brackets per pool, which means you can have 8 setups max used. That means there's 2 setups not being used by Pool A because that tournament just got quicker, or that tournament has other things in it, or other like groups that they could do and stuff, or they're in doubles. Let's use a more realistic example for those who are arguing the Smash stuff. That means this group that's using all 6 or 4 of their setups, they're not allowed to use these other 2, because if they do, then that means all the pools are waiting and stuff. But if you're doing big bracket, you just use every setup and you don't care. You're always using every setup in a big bracket thing. Again, it's a little harder for TOs to navigate. It's also a little bit harder for players to know exactly where they're going to play at, and some would argue that time is lost. That time and inconvenience is lost compared to the big bracket. But when you combine techniques like on-deck matches and reverse bottlenecking for multiple events, and you combine, having the right station signs and all that stuff, then you can get something. Then usually it's a lot quicker with the 64-man bracket to do as one big thing as opposed to 4 16s that go into a top 8. Mostly because of the reasons I said before. You're going to have setups that are open. Those setups should be used by other pools, but they can't because they might open up more matches and stuff based on where there is winners and losers. Because if you're waiting on a winner's match and it's not the end, then once that match is complete, you now need 2 setups to continue, because this match then goes to losers, and this match now goes to loser's bracket, and then this match goes to the winner's bracket. So yeah, it's just kind of, again, you just can't do it, and that kind of thing. It's also with the on decks and stuff. It also assumes that all the pool captains are equal at getting their matches going, because matches should always be quick all the way through. But the pool captains are also playing, which we allow at Donato's, as they should. But at the same time, going back to what I said earlier, TOing. So Donato's, I have always used to lab my TOing. I have made it harder on myself at my weeklies with the 16-man brackets for Tekken, and back when we had 32 to 40-man brackets for Smash 4. I made it harder on myself on purpose so that when I did my weekend events like Kakato, it seems like cakewalk because I'm using it to lab. I have made it clear with the scene that I like to do that, and I will do everything in my power to make it so it doesn't hinder the tournament. So the question is, how much labbing can you actually do? So in this case, we're labbing pools, which we normally don't do at Donato's. We're labbing doing 5 games instead of 4. We're labbing a brand new venue. We're labbing a brand new stream setup spot. And labbing this venue actually applies. We're labbing new setup structure. We're labbing new registration areas. We're labbing how food goes. We're labbing how general food traffic's going to be. All that other fun stuff. So it's just all a lot in one section. It'd be like if you're entering practice mode and you're playing Smash Ultimate and you're like, you know what? Today I'm going to work on my ledge game, my shield punish game, my option selects after up throw, my recovery options, my tech chase options after I land like a down air or something and they, splat on the ground. I don't know my terms, but I'm going to work on all that all at once in about an hour, okay? And yeah, that'll go well, right? If you think it goes well, it won't. Don't do it. Deliberate practice, folks. And of course, Smash GG. I hate this website. I hate it so much. I don't like challenge either. Part of me thinks that if I made my own, it'd be awesome, but it would just take too much time at this point. Registering for Smash GG across multiple games shouldn't be as difficult as it is, and it's just nuanced tricks. Like if you know the tricks, it's easy. But if you don't know the tricks because you think it's a garbage site, then it punishes you for not knowing the tricks. I could show you an example, but I'd rather make a whole video on Smash GG sucks. Biggest complaint is like just the menuing when it comes to registration. Someone pre-registers, I have to click that they've paid for the venue in a separate box area. It's all in one pop-up, but it is a separate box area with its own separate submit button. I have to click that they've paid, and then for those wondering, even though the venue is free, you still have to click them as paid to claim that they're checked in. I guess check-in kind of figures it too, but the point is that it'll think it's messed up sometimes. It probably didn't with this case, but it's still a thing that's in there, so I'm going to bitch about it. Part of my language, folks. Then you have your individual events, which you're added if you pre-registered. You're paid if it's freed, and if you just paid now, then you click on paid, and then you hit submit. It's 2 different submit buttons. If you leave this window to scroll down so you can see the multiple events, and then you click back into that window, it disappears. So you have to actually click on the window itself, but not at like the edge where you think the slide bar is going to be. Actually, will it even show me? Oh, don't want to do that. Yeah, that thing. This will be easier. So, you look on the right, assuming it's one of these slide bar things like it is every other pop-up window in history where you have to scroll down. It's not. You have to hold down. But the point is, it's like, let's say I'm on this window and I click and I need to see what's down in my list. And I click here and I hit down on the keyboard and I can't. So then I click over here and I scroll down and then I click over here again and then it disappears. And that's what was happening on my end. What I had to do was click on this end and then hit down and then I'd be able to do it. It's dumb. I don't like it. It cost me a lot of time. Get this back up to where it's nice. Get me some of my real estate back. This is Notepad++ for those wondering. Lovely, quick tool I use for, well, Notepad++ing. And when you do matches in progress, it doesn't tell you where, if a player's in progress somewhere else, if you need him for something. That'd be a great feature. They're never going to add it because they think they have the conflicts thing. Smash EG is built for majors, and usually majors do sane things like limiting how many people can enter an event. This is a weekly part of the culture of Donatos, and part of the culture we want for the trials, is you should be able to enter everything if you want to. And then it's up to us TOs to get good at running the event, even though people enter everything. That's on us. So, sorry about that, folks, if that hindered things before. So, that's the main reason on the C-. Has to do with the communication between the TOs, has to do with the walking space, has to do with the setups being in the wrong positions. That also was kind of part of the walking space. Us doing way too much TO labbing in one event, especially when we're trying to stress test. Actually, I'll just put it up here just to... I think if I drop one of those things, it becomes like a B, and then a second thing, it becomes an A, just based on our TO crew and stuff. Again, we finished at 12:10, which is fine, especially when Tekken started at like 9:10. So it's about 3 hours to do Tekken, so we try to start at like 8:30, so we're done at like 11:30 or even earlier, depending on the entrance and how the games go. But it's just something to work on. I guess the other thing to mention for reflection, but I'll mention this more in the iteration part. So that covers reflection on everything that kind of happened and my opinions on them. So, iteration. This is what we do for the future. So I already kind of mentioned this. Fewer games. I'm going to call it limited pools, as in like not 4 or something. But I'm actually going to remove this, and it'll just say less TO labbing. So if you want to practice, I think our TOs should practice pools. I think at one point, when I'm no longer running the Tuesdays and others are, they could... Oh, I just realized. Oh, that would have sucked. I didn't ever hit period. I realized one of the periods here is my stop recording button, but did not push that. You know, if people want to practice it, they should be able to do this at this tournament. As long as they can do it without expense to the players. And I think there was a little bit of expense to the players because people were waiting around for pool matches and stuff and waiting around for setups to be used and stuff. Especially the whole top 8 thing. That goes back to the other thing with the pools too, is like, I hate it when this happens. So, I have 4 pools. 3 of the pools are done. Which means you could go keep playing in the top 8. And you could even stream those top 8. But we have to wait for pool 4 to be done. And we have to stream the pool 4 finals because that's what the scene wants. Again, it takes longer to do it. Especially when we're doing other games. So, less TO labbing. I think pools can be done. I think you just have to organize it right, especially if you do pools with the other games on top of it. Something I might actually try Donatos once I get that up and running with the other fighting games, if we do the move, is to just have every event do 2 waves of pools so that I'm practicing doing conflicts and stuff like that. The setups, we have to really figure out a different spot besides the upstairs, or a more efficient way to the upstairs to have extra setups for when people bring them. Because in the downstairs, we have 6 on that wall. We have 6 in the main area. Then we have 3 per cubby. And there's 3 cubbies, so that's 9. So essentially you've got 21 setups. If you squeeze more into the cubbies, then that's even less walking room. So I'm just going to say 21 setups space. Unless I'm mistaken, it's actually 8 setups in that long table, but it's 23 setups. And that's not including the upstairs area. And the upstairs area can do about 5, but there needs to be a spot. We need to be able to be more flexible somewhere else to get more in. Because 29 setups is not a lot. Donatos, I can comfortably get 30. I maxed it out at 48, and that was before the renovation. There's a lot of standing space we could use for extra setup spaces, but again, that's more of a GA thing that I'll mention in the GA video. But the point is that we have to figure out how to allocate the setup space better as setups are coming in and where they can be filtered in and stuff. Because we kind of need all of them. It's also about like where people should set up first. Very important. I think what we did is people came in and we did like the long stretch first, or the like 6 TVs that are facing one direction. Then we did the second wave, And again, all in the one. And then we did the cubbies. Yeah, I think it's just you fill the cubbies first and make those like the first setups, essentially. And you kind of might even have to do it based on time, man. I don't know. That venue space is weird to work with. So another thing with Smash GG, just with general, I forgot to mention reflection, is like, it's becoming a problem now. It was something I've been able to argue about for years, but I have always do cash-only events because it is ignorant to think that the winner is going to have Venmo for you to pay him back. And if they don't, then that means you have to pay him in cash out of your own pocket that day, meaning you have to bring enough cash as a TO to pay your players with a theoretical amount of money every week. Let's say there's 64 entrants for Smash. That means I have to have $128 in cash every week, just so that you, the players, don't have to. And some TOs are cool with that, and some TOs are doing fine with pre-reg only online. But part of what makes Donatos Donatos, and part of what I want Tuesday Trials to be Tuesday's Trials, is I want some guy to show up off the street and be like, I play this game, and I go, do you want to enter? We're still open. And he goes, I didn't bring a controller. And I slap a controller in his hand and go, you can borrow mine. Just need $2. And they're like, well, I've got a 5 or a 10 on me. Even if they say I have a 20 because it's a new guy, then I could just do it immediately. I don't have to sit there and like Venmo a stranger and vice versa from the first time we've ever met. That's the crowd I want to get. And that happens a lot at weeklies. Monthlies, not as much. Weeklies, a ton. It's that atmosphere of like anyone can come in, show up and play. If I go all Venmo, they don't have that anymore. Again, ignorant to think everyone's going to have it, whether you think they should or not. And then even if I do have Venmo, that also means I have to have a substantial amount of money into Venmo in case people don't pay me in Venmo. And make constant deposits to Venmo to make sure I can pay out the players every week. I think that's ridiculous. Please bring cash, especially since you're at a restaurant and stuff. Maybe there's a different way to do it. I've toyed with the idea of having subscriptions for entry fees, but I won't be able to reveal such a scheme until 2022. I need to get the weekly stabled first. Something to think about, though, TOs, especially for the weekly setting. I could have Game Arena handle all the stuff, but again, this is our event at their location, so the idea is that they don't do jack except for doing the food and service, just like Donatos does not take in signups. But Game Arena is different. They're a venue for that kind of thing. So I think that kind of covers for iteration. I think the big thing with the trials, as far as the TOing event perspective, just less games and better ways on how we can optimize the setups, the smaller setup space we have. Because while it is smaller, it's more useful since people don't have to bring monitors. So where does that extra space go for people to put stuff? Where should the extra setups go if they bring extra setups? I don't want to tell people to like walk back to their cars, especially when parking's terrible at this place. But yeah, I think that covers it. And I'll be posting a survey about the venue itself, but I'll cover that more in the next video. So that covers this OPERI on the Tuesday Trials. Hope you liked it, and stay tuned for another video soonish.